堕落しなさい。いいか、よく聞け、堕落しなさい。お主たちが、その人生と飼い後ろものを、いかに美しく、いかに正しく、いかに立派に見せようと、必死になって取り繕っているか、俺にはすべてお見通しだ。虫唾が走る、その、借り物で塗り固めた、薄っぺらな化けの皮を、俺が今ここで、根こそぎ剥がしてやる。どうも、坂口安吾だ。まあ、世間では無頼派などと呼ばれ、太宰や小田作たちと一括りにされてきた男だが、そんなレッテルは、ヘドが出るほどどうでもいい。俺は、誰かの派閥に属した覚えなど、ただの一度もない。俺は、俺だ。それ以上でも、それ以下でもない。分子などという人種はな、言葉をもてあそぶことで飯を食っているだけの、所詮は遊民よ。その遊民の中でも、俺は、特にどうしようもない、はぐれ者だったというだけの話だ。俺が今日、なぜ、こうしてお主たちの前に現れたか。それは、お主たちのその生き方が、あまりにも滑稽で、哀れで、見ていられんからだ。人生の後半戦だか円熟期だか、聞こえのいい言葉を並べては、己の魂の腐臭に蓋をしている。定年だ、悠々自適だと嘘吹いては、昨日と同じ今日を、ただ無気力に繰り返す。かつての、あのギラギラとした情熱は、一体どこへやった。世間体という名の、錆びついた窮屈な鎧を、死ぬまで、いや、死んだ後まで着込み続けるつもりか。健康だ、長生きだと、ただ肉体の延命に救急とし、魂がとっくにミイラ化していることに、気づかぬふりをしている。健康食品を買いあさり、医者の言うことを鵜呑みにし、延命に躍起になるその姿は、まるで、いつ執行されるとも知れぬ死刑宣告を待つ、哀れな囚人のようだ。お主たちは、ただ死ぬのが怖いだけだ。無に帰るのが、怖い。だから、意味があるかのように見せかけるためのガラクタを、必死でかき集めている。思い出という名の、誇りをかぶったガラクタをな。子供は独立し、夫婦の会話もなくなり、鏡に映るのは、世紀の失せた、見知らぬ老人の顔。そんな、だだっ広い空虚を埋めるために、高尚な趣味だの、ボランティアだの、行ったこともない国の絶景写真だのに、手を出しては、必死に充実を演じている。孫の顔を見ることが唯一の幸せだと自分に言い聞かせながら、その身、心の奥底の、さらに奥底では、自分の人生はこれで終わりなのか、と、声にならない声で絶望している。その心のど真ん中で、声なき声が叫んでいるのが、聞こえないか。これは、俺の人生じゃない。と、俺は、こんなところで、終わる人間じゃないはずだ。と、お主たちは、救いを求めている。幸運を引き寄せたいと願っている。だが、そのやり方が、根本的に、鉄頭鉄尾、間違っているのだ。お主たちが求めているのは、耳障りのいい気休めの言葉であり、現実から目をそらすための麻薬だ。手軽な幸福音、インスタントな悟り、ポジティブシンキングとかいう薄っぺらな自己暗示、そんなもので、本当に、このどうしようもない、混沌とした人生が、どうにかなると思っているのか。冗談じゃない。いいか、俺がこれから語るのは、そんな生ぬるいおとぎ話ではない。燃え盛る豪華の東京の瓦礫の中から、俺が、この身をもって掴み取った、たった一つの、血まみれの真実だ。それは、劇薬だ。お主たちの、その腐りかけた価値観を、根こそぎ焼き尽くすほどの、だから、覚悟して聞け。この話を聞き終えたとき、お主は、もはや、これまでの自分ではいられなくなる。世界が、昨日とは、全く、違って見えるだろう。それでもなお、真実とやらを求める、救いようのない馬鹿であるならば、耳の穴をかっぽじって、よく聞くがいい。テーマは、ただ一つ、生きよ、落ちよ、これだけだ。まず、お主たちを蝕んでいる、その根深い病について、話をせねばなるまい。それは、完璧という名の、呪いだ。よりよく、より清く、より崇高であれ。俺も、若い頃、その呪いに、 どっぷりと首まで使っていた仏道を志し、釈迦のキリストのその境地に到達せんと、自らに狂気的なまでの修行を課した。一日4時間睡眠、ありとあらゆる経典を読み、哲学の言葉を脳みそにまるで熱した鉄の杭を打ち込むように詰め込んでいった。人間的な欲望の一切を汚らわしいものとして憎み、断ち切った。聖人君子というあの人間離れした空っぽの、しかし美しい理想像、俺は本気でそれになれると、なれるはずだと信じていたのだ。哀れな若者の、しかし真剣な思い上がりだ。お主たちの人生を振り返ってみよ。お主の人生の一体どれだけがお主自身の腹の底からの欲しいだったのだ。親が喜ぶから良い大学へ行った。世間体が良いから大企業に勤めた。皆が持っているから家を買い、車を買った。その選択のどこにお主自身の魂があった。それはただ世間という名の巨大な流れに逆らわずに流されてきただけではないのか。その果てに俺を待っていたものは何か。ありがたい仏の啓示か、宇宙の真理か。いんな、待っていたのは完全で徹底的な救いようのない神経衰弱だった。現実と妄想の区別がつかなくなり、幻覚が昼夜を問わず俺を災難だ。天井の木目が巨大なムカデとなって俺の顔めがけて落ちてくる。道端の苔むした地蔵がにたりと笑い、血の涙を流して俺を呪う。眠ろうとすれば金縛りにあって得体の知れない何かが俺の腹の上に乗って魂をじわじわと引きずり出そうとするのだ。日常生活すらままならない。まさしく生き地獄だ。普通の医者なら安静にしろと言っただろう。栄養のあるものを食えとバカを言う。静寂はな、時として人間を殺すのだ。あまりに静かすぎると自分の心臓の音、血の流れる音、魂のきしむ音まで聞こえてきて、それに耐えられなくなる。だから嵐が必要なのだ。すべてを飲み込むほどのより大きな騒音で内なる恐怖をかき消すしかないのだ。俺はその地獄の底でどうしたか。毒をもって毒を制すだ。フランス語、ラテン語、ギリシャ語、それらの全く違う文法体系を持つ言葉の洪水を俺は自らの脳に叩き込んだ。一つの狂気を別のより大きな狂気で叩き潰そうとしたのだ。理想のその最も高い頂を目指したはずの俺が現実のその最も汚い泥沼の底まで一直線に落ちていったのだ。これこそが俺の人生における最初の、そして最も偉大なる堕落だった。その地獄の底でのたうち回りながら俺はようやく気がついた。ああ、そうかと。人間が人間であることをやめて神や仏になろうとすること、そのこと自体がそもそも救いようのない傲慢であり醜悪な欺瞞なのだと。泥にまみれ、糞尿にまみれ、欲望にまみれて、それでもなお生きようともがくこと、そのどうしようもない人間の姿こそが出発点であり、そして唯一の真実なのだと。この堕落という名の身を裂くような体験がなければ、俺はおそらくもっともらしい言葉をもてあそぶただの空っぽのインテリで終わっていただろう。俺はかつて大洋教員をしていたことがある。その時万引きをそそのかした生徒がいた。俺はそいつにこう言った。良いことも悪いことも自分一人でやるんだと。他人のせいにするな、命令されたからなどという言い訳は通用しない。自分の意志で自分の足で善も悪も引き受けるのだ。お主たちはどうだ。俺が陥った地獄とお主たちが今いるその生ぬるい地獄は地続きなのだぞ。お主たちは 社会が、他人が作った、かくあるべしという物差しで、自分を裁き続けている。良き親、良き夫、良き妻、良き隣人、その無数の役割という名の檻に、自ら進んで、囚われている。そのお主たちが、大事そうに着込んでいる立派な人間という衣装は、誰が仕立てたものだ。それは、お主自身の魂の肌触りに合っているか。息苦しいだろう。窮屈だろう。偽りの自分を演じ続けることに、心の底では、とうに、うんざりしているはずだ。いいか、人間は、そんなに、きれいで、立派なものじゃない。もっと、ずっと、どうしようもなく、醜く、弱く、矛盾に満ちた、混沌そのもののような生き物なのだ。その、目を背けたいほどの真実から逃げ回り、美しい理想という名の嘘で、自分をごまかし続けること、それこそが、魂にとって、最大の裏切り行為なのだ。俺は、戦争をこの目で見た。お主たちの多くが、まだ生まれてもいなかった頃の話だ。皆が、空襲を恐れて、田舎へ疎開していく中、俺は、一人、東京のど真ん中に、居座り続けた。毎晩のように、B29の編隊が、不気味な重低音を響かせて、やってくる。単焦灯の光が、夜空を裂き、高射砲が、虚しい方向を上げる。やがて、焼夷弾が、まるで、天から降り注ぐ、悪魔の涙のように、キラキラと、街に降り注ぐのだ。家が、紙細工のように燃え上がる。街が、一つの巨大な、燃え盛る生き物のように、のたうち回る。そして、人がだ。まるで、道端のゴミのように、物のように、あっけなく、無造作に、消し飛んでいく。爆弾が落ちる。すぐそのそばで、人々は、平然と飯を食い、恋をし、子供を産む。昨日までの常識が、一夜にして、非常識になる。その時、人間を支えるのは、高尚な理念などではない。ただ、腹が減るという事実、眠くなるという事実、肌のぬくもりが恋しいという、どうしようもない、動物的な事実だけだ。俺は、その光景を、アパートの一室から、ただ、じっと見ていた。時には、覚醒剤の力を借りてまで、その偉大な破壊の一部始終を、この目に焼き付けようとした。不思議と、恐怖はなかった。あったのは、奇妙に冷めきった、静かな好奇心だけだ。そして、俺は、その炎の海の中に、一つの、圧倒的な美を見たのだ。誤解するな。俺は、人の死を喜んだわけではない。俺が美しいと感じたのは、偽物が燃え尽きる、その浄化の炎だ。人間が、何百年とかけて作り上げてきた、嘘と虚飾の文明が、たった一晩で、平等な、ただの瓦礫と灰に帰す。その、どうしようもないほどの、圧倒的な正直さ。そこに、俺は、一種の、神々しささえ感じたのだ。昨日までお国のために、天皇陛下のために、死ぬのが本望だと、勇ましいことを叫んでいた男が、我先に、と逃げ惑い、他人の家から、食い物を盗み出す、夫の戦死を、名誉の戦死だと気丈に語っていた未亡人が、その下の根も乾かぬうちに、闇市で知り合った、新しい男の腕の中で、強勢を上げる。闇市には、道徳など、一点もなかった。だが、そこには、命があった。生きるという、ただ一点に集中する、凄まじいエネルギーの渦があった。食い物を奪い合い、体を売ってでも生き延びようとする。それは、醜いかもしれん。だが、偽善に満ちた平時より、よっぽど、人間的で、真実の光に満ちていたのだ。この体験は、俺の小説白地の中に、流れ込んでいる。あの物語では、空襲の混沌の中、社会的な地位も、知性も、財産も、すべてが無意味になる。残るのは、ただ、生き延びようとする、男と女の、むき出しの、動物的な関係だけだ。世間の人々は、その光景を指して、 堕落だと嘆いた。日本人の精神が地に落ちたと嘆いた。だが、俺は腹の底から笑ってやった。バカを言え。と、これは堕落ではない。人間は変わりはしないのだ。ただ、人間へ、本来の姿へ戻ってきただけなのだ。戦争が終わったから落ちるのではないのだ。人間だから落ちるのだ。生きているから落ちるのだ。食いたい、眠りたい、犯したい、生き延びたい。その動物的で根源的でむき出しの衝動、それこそが人間という生き物の偽らざる本性なのだ。国家という巨大なからくりがガラガラと音を立てて崩れ落ちたことで、その本性がただ白日のもとにさらされたに過ぎない。そうだ、あれは堕落ではなかった。あれは人間への偉大なる回帰だったのだ。お主たちが今感じているその得体の知れない息苦しさも、これと全く同じ構造の上にある。お主たちは社会が他人が作ったこうあるべきだという偽りの道徳、偽りの理想、偽りの幸福感に自分を無理やりに押し込めている。だから苦しいのだ。魂が悲鳴を上げているのだ。そこから抜け出す道はたった一つしかない。その偽の着物を、偽りの鎧を自らの手でビリビリに引き裂くことだ。社会的な対面、見え、建前、世間様の目、そんなくだらないがらくたは今すぐすべてドブに捨ててしまえ。そして赤裸々なありのままの自分になるのだ。そうだ、何度でも言ってやる。堕落しなさい。それこそがお主たちが本当の自分に立ち返るための唯一の、そして聖なる儀式なのだ。だが勘違いするなよ。俺が言う堕落とは単なる破滅への衝動や刹那的な快楽主義のことではない。酒や薬に溺れすべてを投げ出すことではない。そんなものはただの弱い犬の現実からの逃避だ。臆病者の自己憐憫だ。そこには何の救いもない。俺が言っているのは正しく落ちるということだ。正しく落ちる道を、その道のどん詰まりまで落ちきることだ。それは一体どういうことか。それは自らの弱さ、醜さ、欲望、嫉妬、怠惰、矛盾、そのおよそ人間的なあらゆるお濁から決して目をそらさず、それらすべてを意識的に勇敢に、そしてどこまでも正直に引き受けるということだ。俺は税金が払えずに国税局と大立ち回りを演じたことがある。作家の段和夫の家に転がり込んでは出前のカレーを100人前注文して呆れられたこともある。これらは世間の常識から見ればただの気候、破滅的な行為にしか見えんだろう。だが俺にとってはこれらもまた一つの実践だったのだ。世間の決めたルールなんぞ知ったことか。俺は俺の必要に従って生きる、その宣言だったのだ。そうだ、この必要という言葉を覚えておけ。これがすべての鍵なのだ。俺はかつてこう書いたことがある。必要ならば法隆寺を取り壊して停車場を作るがいいと。案の定世間のインテリどもは俺を文化への冒涜者だ、野蛮人だと口を極めて罵った。だが連中は何も分かっていない。真の文化とは寝台仏をガラスケースの中に丁重に飾っておくことではないのだ。美しいから残すのではない。必要だから使うのだ。真の美とは美しいものを作ろうなどという下心見え見えの意識的なところからは決して生まれてこない。それは今を生きている人間の腹の底からのやむにやまれぬ切実な必要の中から必然としてほとばしり出てくるものなのだ。 お主たちの人生に真の美はあるか。それは、見栄や体裁のために買った高価な絵画や骨董品のことではないぞ。お主が、やむにやまれぬ必要に駆られて、必死で何かを成し遂げたとき、その顔に刻まれた詩は、その手にできた豆、その営みの痕跡そのものにこそ、本物の美は、宿るのだ。どうしても、書かねばならぬこと、どうしても、作らねばならぬこと、どうしても、生きねばならぬこと、その、どうしようもない必要だけが、本物の価値を、本物の力を、本物の美を、この世に生み出すのだ。お主たちの人生も、これと寸分違わず、同じなのだ。お主にとって、本当に必要なものは、一体、何だ。老後の安定か、人からの尊敬か、家族からの感謝か、そんなものは、お主の魂にとって、本当に必要か。それらは、お主が、この世に生まれてきた、その意味の、確信に触れているか。違うだろう。それらはすべて、誰かが作り上げた、借り物の価値観だ。お主の外側にある、空っぽの偽物だ。そんな、偽物の奴隷となって、自分の、たった一度の人生を、終えるつもりか。自分の内側を見よ。自分の、混沌を、自分の、欲望を、自分の、孤独を、まっすぐに、見つめろ。そして、その、瓦礫と泥の中から、お主自身の、たった一つの必要を、命がけで、見つけ出すのだ。そのためには、まず、落ちなければならない。あらゆる建前を捨て、あらゆる理想を疑い、あらゆる権威を否定し、丸裸の孤独な自分自身に徹底的に向き合わなければならないのだ。お主たちもやってみるがいい。小さなことでいい。世間のくだらん常識にたった一つでいいから反逆してみろ。例えば、明日の同窓会、行きたくもないなら行くな。体調が悪いなどというつまらん嘘をつくな。くだらないからいかんと心の中で、いや、言えるものなら本人に直接言ってみろ。その時、お主の魂は久しぶりに深呼吸をするだろう。これが正しく落ちるということの本当の意味だ。生きるとは落ちることだ。そのこと以外の中に人間を救う便利な近道など断じてない。さあ、どうだお主たち。堕落する覚悟はできたか。偽りの自分という名の窮屈な死に装束を自らの手で引き裂く覚悟は。だが、話はまだ終わりではない。落ちきった。そのどん底の、さらにその先がある。落ちて、落ちて、落ちきって、丸裸のただの人間へ完全に戻ったとき、そこからがお主たちの本当の、そして最も創造的な仕事の始まりなのだ。それは何か自分自身の天皇を編み出すことだ。天皇とは何だ。かつてそれは国家であり、道徳であり、我々の外側にある絶対的な権威だった。人々が盲目的に思考停止して従うべき巨大な規範だった。だが、その外部の天皇は、あの戦争の豪華の中で完全に死んだのだ。いや、もとより、そんなものは幻に過ぎなかったのだ。ならば、どうするか。答えは一つしかない。自分自身の内側に自分だけの絶対的な規範を打ち立てるのだ。自分自身の武士道を、自分自身の掟を、自分自身の神を創造するのだ。誰かに与えられた借り物の道徳ではない。お主がお主自身の血と涙と恥と絶望のそのすべてを練り込んで編み出したお主だけのたった一つの真実の道徳だ。それは果てしなく孤独な作業だろう。誰にも理解されないかもしれん。友人や家族から強人扱いされるかもしれん。世界中を敵に回すことになるかもしれん。だが、 その孤独を恐れるな。その他大勢からの承認に魂を売り渡すな。その他人の評価という名の鎖から解き放たれ、自分の価値観で世界を測り、自分の足で大地を踏みしめて歩く。これほどの快感が、これほどの自由が他にあるか。それは自分という名の未開の王国を自ら切り開いていく王だけが味わえる至上の喜びなのだ。その孤独の先にあるものこそが何者にも揺るがされることのない絶対的な精神の自由であり、静かでしかし鋼のように強靭な心の平安なのだ。人間は永遠に自由ではありえない。なぜなら人間は生きており、また死なねばならず、そして人間は考えるからだ。この生きているという死ぬという考えるという根源的な不自由さのそのど真ん中で、それでもなお自由であろうともがくこと、外部のいかなる権威にもへつらうことなく、ただ自らの魂の内なる声、その命令にのみ従うこと、それこそが俺の言う自分自身の天皇をいただくということの正体なのだ。もう演じるのはやめにしろ。亡霊のために生きるのは今日で終わりだ。お主たちのその心の中にある誇をかぶった空っぽの寺を今日今すぐ己の手で叩き壊せ。そしてその瓦礫の中からお主自身のたった一つの聖なる掟を築き上げるのだ。泥の中からお主自身のたった一つの輝く真実を見つけ出すのだ。いいか、最後にもう一度だけ言ってやる。これは命令であり祝福であり、お主たちがこれから歩むべき唯一の道標だ。生きよ、そして落ちよ。それこそがお主たちが真にお主たち自身としてこのどうしようもない、しかし愛おしい人生を最後まで燃え尽きるまで生き抜くための唯一の道なのだ。わかったか。ならば行け。今すぐここから去れ。そして始めろ。今日の話がお主の魂に消えることのない火をつけたなら、チャンネル登録を頼む。さらなる真理の探求、そして人生の本当の勝利を求めるならば、またこの場所で会おうではないか。
All day today, we will be shining a spotlight on who you really are. You think sometimes that the negative emotion that you feel is because you're looking at a condition or a circumstance that isn't pleasing. Someone said, "My lover left and I am sad." And we said, "No, you're not." And she said, "My lover left and now I'm sad." And we said, "No, you're not." Abraham, what's wrong with you? Can't you hear? My lover left and now I'm sad. And we said, "No, you're not." She said, "All right. I wasn't sad. My lover left. Now I'm sad. I'm sad because my lover left." And we said, "We know that's how it seems, but you're sad because you're focused upon the absence of a lover, when in your vibrational reality is the presence of a lover. And what you want is the presence of a lover. And when you focus upon the absence of a lover, you tear yourself apart. And that's why you feel this negative emotion. You are assigning this sadness to someone else's behavior. We are assigning this sadness to your behavior. We are assigning this sadness to your inability to focus inside the vortex." That's hard to hear. Esther doesn't even want to hear that. Please give me just a little bit of, can't the universe just make me the one exception just this one time? Can't I focus upon the absence of what I want without it being my fault? Can't it be the fault of the person who is displaying the behavior that I'm focused upon? We say, well, that's conditional love if we've ever heard it. Now what are you going to do? Try to control the world so that you can feel better? Oh yeah, that is what you try to do, isn't it? That is what you try to do, but it isn't working out, have you noticed? You have a war on drugs and a war on terrorism and a war on cancer and a war on teenage pregnancy and a war on, and they're all getting bigger because when you push against unwanted things, you hold yourself outside the vortex where the solution is. And this is the most important thing that we want you to hear. Oh, hear this. We'll say it again and again until you get it. When your life and what you're sifting through the contrast helps a problem to come into focus, the whole time that problem is coming into focus outside the vortex for you, oh, you're going to love it. The solution is coming into focus inside the vortex. Thought for thought, point for point. Little problem, little solution. Bigger problem, bigger solution. Boom, 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 boom. We're not kidding you. In every moment that through life you, blessed beings that you are, have carved out and defined with great detail the problem, without even knowing it, you've been carving out with great detail the solution. You just haven't known it because while you're beating the drum of the problem, you don't have access to the solution. But it doesn't mean it isn't there, and it doesn't mean we don't have access to it, and it doesn't mean you can't too if you'll come over here where we are. Don't you like that? So, the other day something's going on. Esther's feeling uncomfortable about it. She said, hey, the good news is we're creating something really wonderful over there where we can't see it. But it's good to know. Isn't it good to know? If we can convince you in this short time that we're together today about the existence of this vibrational reality, if you leave here accepting the reality of this vibrational reality, and then we're able to show you how you can focus yourself there regardless of what's going on over here in your reality, you will find relief immediately. A woman said, I cannot pay my mortgage and I don't know what to do. And we wanted to bring her into the vortex. We wanted her to think hopeful thoughts. She was really stubborn. She didn't want to really do that. She wanted to face reality. But once we were able to convince her that she can't, in this moment, while we're having a conversation with her, she can't produce out of thin air the money to pay her mortgage. It had gone far out of whack. She was not going to manifest those dollars that day, in that moment, in the hour that we spent in conversation. She was not going to manifest those dollars. So she could not change reality. And if her emotion depended upon her reality changing, then she was in for a long, hard winter. But if we could convince her that her emotions don't have to be dependent upon what manifests in this moment, when we were able to convince her that she could go into the vortex where relief is now, she can find relief now. She can't find the money this red hot minute, but she can find relief now, this red hot minute. She can find relief. She can go to the vortex. She can find relief. And once we were able to suck her in with our very clever, law-based knowledge, in her absence of resistance, the money came that week. When you release resistance, you release the only thing that is holding you apart from what you want. The difference is, so many humans aren't willing to release resistance until the help comes. They say, I want to be over there. And we say, what's over there? And they say, I don't know, I'm over here. We say, well, what would it be like over there? I don't know, I'm over here. Well, try to think about what it's like over there. I can't. I'm so unhappy about what's over here. We say, well, if you could just think about what's over there, you could shift the way you feel. And then vibrationally speaking, you'll be over there, and then everything else will follow. Now, bring it to me while I'm over here, and then I'll go over there. That's sort of what most people say. Show it to me. Show me the money. Show it to me, and then I will have a emotional response to what is. And we say, that really is the opposite of what the art of allowing is. The art of allowing is finding a way of allowing alignment regardless of what's going on in reality. It's also what unconditional love is. I'm going to find alignment with the love that is me, regardless of the condition that's going on. I'm going to discover unconditional love. I'm going to discover unconditional alignment. I'm going to discover unconditional releasing of resistance. I'm just going to let it go because it doesn't feel good. I'm going to let it go because it doesn't feel good. But you know, we've never seen anyone that could let something go without finding something else. When you say, I'm not going to think about that thing that I'm thinking about anymore, you're thinking about that thing that you're not going to think about anymore. And then you say to your friend, help me not think about this. About what? About that. I don't want to think about that anymore. Why don't you want to think about that? Because it doesn't feel good when I think about it. Well, what's wrong with thinking about it? Well, it just doesn't feel good. And when I think about that, it keeps me from what I want. Well, then you shouldn't think about that. I know I'm trying not to think about that, but I'm thinking about that. I wish I didn't think about that. If that thing wasn't so big. You know, that thing's been there for so long. Have I told you how long that's been there? That's been dogging me for as long as I can remember. And the more you talk about what you're not going to think about, the bigger it gets, and the more you use it as your excuse not to go into the vortex. Where if instead of not thinking about that thing you're not going to think about, which just causes you to think about that thing that you're not going to think about, you would try to think about something else. So then you say, okay, then I'll think about that. But that, way over there, is too far vibrationally apart. In other words, you've trained yourself over here. This is what's easy to think about because this is what's active in your vibration. So we want you to be nice to yourselves when you say, I'm thinking about this, but I'm not thinking about it as much. And I can't think about that because I've trained myself to think about this. What you want to do is think about this a little closer to what you really want. Think about this. In other words, move incrementally. Just reach for the best feeling thought that you can find from where you are until you train yourself into the vicinity of your vortex. This vortex of creation, do you accept its reality? Doesn't matter if you do or not, it is reality. The larger part of you is there, even in your ignorance of it. There it is with everything you want. And this vortex, this edge of the vortex is somewhere on the emotional scale between hope and belief. That's where it is. So if you're over here in fear, you're nowhere near the vortex. And even though the vortex is calling you, it's pulling you forward. When you go from despair and the vortex gets hold of you a little bit and pulls you forward, you end up in revenge. And you say, oh, that doesn't feel very vortex-like. We say, yes, it does. It's closer. It's closer to the vortex than you were. When you allow yourself to move from revenge into hatred and hatred into anger and anger into less anger, into frustration, into overwhelmment, when you get in the vicinity of hope, now the vortex will take you right in and show you something to make a believer out of you. In other words, when you allow yourself to get into the vicinity of the vortex will help you to believe. So what we really want to talk about in this gathering, because most of you are not over there in despair. Most of you hang around with the low end of your vibration somewhere in the vicinity of overwhelmment. Oh, you dip into anger occasionally, sometimes despair, but your set point on your emotional scale is somewhere between overwhelmment, dipping into some anger, and hope. That's where most of you are hanging out. Occasionally you go right into the vortex, but you don't stay there very long. When Esther first began receiving us, she wasn't receiving us in this way. She was receiving us through typing. And she already was a very fast typer. She had won contests at 120 words a minute. So she was really good on the keyboard. And so when we began flowing through her, she could keep up with us pretty well. And then one day she said, it was before computers. It was in the days of the IBM Selectric typewriter. And Esther said, Abraham, I think I'm going to get a word processor. And do you think it's a good idea? And we said, stay with what you have, because the physical, kinesthetic sense of well-being that you have is important before this in the vortex stuff starts flowing through you. So in the same way that you want a DVD 1 and a DVD 2, where you're wanting to teach the mechanics of pitching, you're wanting to teach getting your body into shape, you're wanting, in other words, there is this physical part of everything that when that physical part is in place, there's an enhancement to your belief that makes you then more expectant of being able to deliver the dreams that you have identified.
Okay.
So what we're really getting at here with all of this is that, and what this gathering has really been about in a way that no other gathering has been as clearly, is that yes, you are vibrational beings first and foremost. But yes, you are here in this physical body with enormous reason. And yes, in this physical body, you are causing an expansion of the whole of that which you are. And in the blending of the non-physical you and the physical you, in the blending of the emotional you and the physical you, there is a satisfaction in life that cannot be achieved by being only non-physical or by being only physical. In other words, an intertwining of all that we all are is necessary for the joyful experience that you've come forth to live.
Okay.
And so what we really want to say to you in a way that we think you can hear it now more clearly than ever before is all of these processes that we offer were for the sake of sort of training your ability to focus. In other words, to show you that you have the ability of complaining or praising, that you have the ability of leaning negative or leaning positive, that you have options, and you've shown yourself that you have those options. But now, the emphasis that we are really encouraging to you, and we spoke about this earlier, is use any excuse in the world that you can to get in the vortex. Don't stand outside the vortex with your issue, determined that you're going to fix this issue so that you can get in the vortex. Instead, use anything, and you have endless things. That's what the dolphins are about for you. They're showing you, look, you're in the vortex. Look, you're in the vortex. Look, we're in the vortex. Look, this is the vortex. Look, this is the vortex. Use anything and everything that you can to get into the vortex. And then everything else will take care of itself. Okay. If you let your undivided attention and your dominant intention, the thing that matters more to you than all other things put together, to get in the vortex, to consistently get into the vortex, and to milk it when you're there. Okay. If you let being in the vortex be what matters most, all of those problems that have produced all of these solutions will appear to you, in other words. And it takes the trying out of it, because you don't have to try to get in the vortex when you swim with those dolphins. No way. There's no effort there. You're just in the vortex. But there's something in this physical world that says, because it's easy, or even more, because it's joyful, you must not be paying enough price. You're supposed to suffer. You should get on that pitching mound and pitch until your arm aches. You should get on that focus wheel that Abraham has offered and practice it until your mind is numb. In other words, you should do all of these exercises. You should suffer your way into the vortex, is what humans want to say. And we say, no, just get in the vortex. Use the easiest thing in the world that you can to do to get in there. Focus, think it, do it, drink it, whatever it is, get in the vortex. Get in the vortex, get in the vortex. And as you consistently do it, it is our promise to you that the universe will deliver to you the path to all the dreams that you have dreamed.
Good morning. I wanted to go back to the gentleman that was talking about health and being general, you mentioned. And I wanted to do it in a different frame of just abundance of good health, abundance of prosperity, abundance of love, abundance of everything. And the reason I say this is it helps everyone, but I just want the clarity to understand how to go about and being general in that sort of way.
Well, here's the rule of thumb. This is what we're offering. Anytime you know for sure that your frame of mind about a subject is not where you want it to be. In other words, when you know that you're more negatively oriented right now about this than positively oriented, that's really the time to be as general about it as you can. When you know that you're positive about it, that's the time to be as specific as you can, because general slows the momentum down and specific speeds the momentum up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So continue with what you're reaching for.
I'm reaching for the words to say, to become general about abundance in general. It doesn't need to be abundant of anything in particular, but just good health and well-being.
In order to prime this pump a little bit, let's take the flip side of it. Let's think in terms of shortage consciousness. So shortage consciousness goes like this. Let's take the abundance subject first. People who have shortage consciousness relative to abundance have this flawed premise. They think that there's a finite pile of resources that are somehow being divided among you. And usually they think unfairly divided among you. They don't understand that the resources are exponentially expanding because of desire. They don't understand that resources are about thoughts that have turned to resources. Think about your economy today and how no stuff's being trucked in. In other words, it's not being piped in from other planets. It's becoming resources as thoughts and ideas are turning to those resources. You are agreeing with that? So shortage consciousness about money is about, lack consciousness about money is about a misunderstanding of how there's a never-ending flow of all of it. And so when you feel the absurdity of that, it can make you feel more optimistic about it. But then you've got to put yourself in sync with the optimism that you found, which means you have to find ways of feeling good about that. And it is simply the process of speaking it and see how it feels, and speaking it and see how it feels. So let's say that the subject that you are working on is the subject of feeling more financially prosperous. And let's say that the current reality that you are living doesn't really support that to the degree that you would like to, that you feel limitations relative to your financial situation. And so if you are looking precisely at how much money you have, what your asset to liability relationship is, if you're looking at your income increase, in other words, if you are looking at reality and coming up with answers that you don't want to come up with, then those specific thoughts are holding you in a place you don't want to be, and even taking you further into a place that you don't want to be. So you know that's not the right approach. So by getting general about it, we mean statements like this, kind of an uncondition of it. The bank and the money in it is a condition. The way you feel is an uncondition. Negative or positive is an uncondition. Focusing on something that is finite is more of a condition. Humans have been talking about unconditional love for a long time, not realizing what it means. And we're talking about unconditional love, unconditional alignment, unconditional clarity, unconditional prosperity. We're talking about taking the reality that has you all balled up and in a disallowing mode out of the equation, which once you stop blocking the flow will come. Once you stop holding the cork under the water, the cork will float again. And so general statements such as, I like the subject of economics. I like the subject of economics. I like the idea of in and out. I like dollars flowing to me and through me to someone else. I like the flow of dollars. I like knowing that there is no waste, that I can't waste money because when I spend it, someone feeds their kids. I like knowing that I don't waste money because when I spend it, it's economics that someone else benefits from. I like dollars flowing through me. I like them flowing in and I like them flowing out. Just like breathing, I can feel the well-being of that. Now, were we general enough with those statements that it didn't bump up against anything that bothered you? Yes. I like the idea of prosperity. I like the feeling of prosperity. I like excellence. I like what money can do. I like when economics are focused in a particular area. I like the renewal of a city. I like the renewal of a neighborhood. I like the refurbishing of my own basement. I like the renewal of my own transportation. I like renewal. I like resourcing. I like flowing. I like abundance. I like understanding the never-endedness of abundance. So these are really general statements that you're not tripping over in any way because we didn't say anything that is problematic to you. You do like abundance. I like knowing that there is no waste. Now, this is an important one for you to rest on just for a moment. I like knowing that when I spend money, I'm contributing in a positive way. I like money flowing through me. I like the balance of money flowing through me. In and out, not out, 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 in. Out, 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 in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Not even in, out. That doesn't feel good either, does it? Not in, can I, please, can I, please. No, in and out. Because the more you understand the in and outness of it, the more you understand that in the same way that the idea will flow to you, there's no shortage of ideas. There's just receptive mode and not receptive mode. So if you're not in the receptive mode, then you're saying, no ideas here. We say, yes, they're all around. They're being transmitted to you. You're just not receiving them because you're not in the receptive mode. You say, well, give me an idea and I'll be in the receptive mode. Get in the receptive mode and then the idea will flow. Just like, well, give me the money and then I'll feel prosperous. Feel prosperous and then the money will flow. You've got to find the mindset. You've got to find the vibrational stance. You've got to find the emotional stance in order to allow it to flow. And you can tell when you do. So whether it's clarity shortage or money shortage. Doesn't matter what the shortage is. In every case, the shortage is caused by you, and don't be hard on yourself, by the beliefs you've picked up along your physical trail. Well, it's logical that if you're in an environment where people are worried about money, where they're telling you that you're wasteful, where they're conveying to you that if you utilize that resource or whatever it is, that you are squandering it or wasting it, because humans are accustomed to looking at things in a finite way. And yet, it's so interesting to watch your weather patterns and the way you create your floods and droughts. Because the water is proportionate to your desires and needs. But it flows sporadically because of your blocking it off and not allowing it to. And the abundance of dollars and the abundance of clarity, the abundance of ideas are the same. It's an individual thing, much more than you know. But you don't see yourselves as individual because you are so aware as you are looking out into the population of your world of what others are doing. We're just asking you to try a little bit, to think thoughts that feel better to you when you think them, and watch what happens to the prosperity that you begin to allow into your own experience. There will always be those who have practiced shortage consciousness long enough that they are sure that you are their problem. But you are not. And as long as you let them think that you are their problem, they will not find a solution because you are not their problem.
So the words that you say about abundance in all those categories will help, putting a general feel on it.
Well, use your own logic about it also. In other words, this is really self-talk. This is really self-convincing. This is really talking yourself into your own blessings. That's the thing that is so interesting to us, is that the wherewithal for everything that you want is right there for you for the taking. Just like ripe fruit on a tree, right there for you. But sometimes, as individuals or as mass consciousness, you get fixated on something that blocks you off from it, and then you demand that it is not there. That would be like saying to your dog, who clearly can hear something you can't hear, stop it. You're faking that. I know for sure you can't hear that because I can't. So stop it. And every time he acts like he's hearing something, you just slap him again. After a while, he'll stop letting you know he hears. He'll hear, but he won't let you know. Same with his ability to smell. He can smell stuff you can't smell. Stuff you don't want to smell sometimes. He can. But you don't deny that he can smell. You say, you have a different smelling receptive mode than I do. And what we're wanting to say to you all in a loving, in a obnoxious way, we want you to get into more of the receptive mode and allow yourself to be the receiver of so much of the abundance that is there for you, whether it's physical well-being or financial well-being or intellectual well-being, just being in the right place at the right time. You didn't come to solve problems. You came to experience the exhilaration of flowing toward what you want. And so these conversations are not about digging you out of a hole. These conversations are about you getting to be all that you came here to be, because that life-giving, exhilarating feeling of pure desire that's not held back by beliefs that are hindering it is the most delicious state of being in the world. And you see it in your little children. And yet, unlike the dog, you never say, no, that's wrong. You can't smell that. And yet you do say that to your children. That optimism is ill-placed, you say to them. Sometimes you do. You can't make a living doing that. Go get a real job. You need to go to college, and you need to find out what the needs are in this world, not what the wants are. You don't get to do what you want to do. You have to figure out what the needs are, and you need to become educated so that you can feel needs. I know life sucks, but it's hard. That's sort of the adult to children perspective. And if they're happy, especially if they're loud when they're happy, you say, settle down, settle down, settle down. You want them to settle down. Face reality. And they say, No, I wasn't born to face reality. There's so much that I can see that you can't see, dear dead mother and daddy. You can't see it anymore because you've stopped allowing yourselves to believe. But I'm little and I'm young and I still believe, and we want you to return to those who believe. And you can do it. Oh, here it is. You got to figure out how to get there around your path of resistance. That's why we call it the path of least resistance. It really would be better if we called it the path of most allowance, but most humans can hear the path of least resistance more. So consider this. Your inner being knows right where you are, right here, right now, on all subjects, and where you want to be, right here, right now, on all subjects, and knows how to get you from there to there, from where you are to where you want to be, knows where all the resistance pieces in your trail are, and is calling you over and around and under and through all of them, knows how to get you there. And so your inner being isn't condemning you for putting resistance on your trail. Your inner being just accepts that that's a sort of natural thing, but is still guiding you around it. The other day, Esther was looking for something. Happens from time to time because she's spread out in a lot of different places. And so she could not find it. It was a piece of paper. She sort of kind of remembered where she last saw it, and she knew which logical pile it should be in which suitcase or box it was likely in, as she had transported it from one place to another. But she could not find it, and she needed it, and she needed it now. So she decided to just forget about it because she had worked herself into a sort of frenzy to the point that she was saying, Esther, she was scolding herself, you could do better than this. You have the ability to be more organized than this. She was really giving herself a lot of grief. And then she got an idea to just go have lunch. So she had lunch and sort of forgot about it. And as soon as she got back to the house, she thought of something else she needed, and she knew right where it was. And when she went to get this other thing that she needed, there was the other thing that she was looking for right there with it. So her inner being guided her through the path of least resistance, through the path of her lesser resistance. She was not resistant about that other thing. And so her inner being could easily guide her to that. You see what we're getting at?